In this episode of a Did They Get It Right series, we want to address some of the criticism that's being put out in the internet by some of the talking heads that have some problems with the film. And so we're going to start by reading one of those criticisms that comes from a website and then discuss whether this is a valid critique or if they actually got it right in the show. So I'm going to just take a second and read this criticism. And you may find this a bit entertaining, as I actually do, but
it's actually funny. Yeah,
it's kind of funny. Yeah, so this person is really upset. I'll set the stage. This person is upset that Buck that Buck disappeared. So this is kind of
for 2 episodes. Yeah,
couple of episodes back is when this came out. I think it's important to say that. So all right, it says the show writers decided to kill off their main character off screen. Not only that, they decided to skip the entire Bremen battle sequence. So this is where Buck was up fighting and we didn't get to see it. And instead focus on Egan having a night off in London. While the storyline does have poignancy, skipping a major battle sequence to explore it is a poor decision for a World War II epic about a group of bomber pilots in a unit known for having its members die in combat. That decision is egregious enough on its face, but the fact that they did it to the main character and one of the consistently best performances is truly what has me ready to rage quit the show.
I wonder if that writer, if he could change it now after this episode. And of course, when I first read that review, of course, I'd read the book but there were so many comments online. People were going, "Oh no, he couldn't." Even the ones that didn't read the book, "Oh, he couldn't be dead, or they would have shown it." I mean, it's like I almost felt like, "Well, buddy, you can't figure it out." And then also, this is my pet peeve of critiquing a mini series as it's still going on versus critiquing a whole movie that you've watched the whole movie. Well, you can complain about storylines, you can complain about main character development all you want because you've seen the whole thing. And in this case, his review is not wrong on his perspective. It was just premature. It's like, buddy, let it play out a little bit,
I gotta say, though, the fact that he wanted to rage quit the show, in a sense, I think it was a big compliment because it just shows how invested he was in those characters and the storyline, and he wanted to see what happened. And so I think, if anything, that's actually reflective of a great job the producers did. That it would upset someone so much that they didn't show what he felt needed to be shown. But to the end, I know we discussed this in the episode after Buck didn't show up in that episode. We knew he'd been shot down and we saw an episode without him. It was nice actually to be able to see the war from the ground perspective. So even I think his complaint to say, well, why didn't we get to see them fight over Bremen? Well, we had just had an episode prior that had a lot of air battle, and we have one coming up over Munster. So I just to that criticism, I think it was exactly the way they should tell the story, to break up. So it's not constant air battle after air battle.
Yeah. And, we've talked about this in some of our live shows, that, some of the early criticism was, well, we didn't get no personal stories. They went straight into the action. We didn't get this character development. And what you're finding out, they've just done it in the reverse order, where they gave us a lot of action. Now we're starting to get into some of these personal stories that people have such fond memories of Band of Brothers. They connected. So that's happening right now, kind of right in the middle. And also you got to take back the Band of Brothers. That book was about easy company in the infantry, and so it's specific about a smaller group of men. And Masters of the Air, if you have the pleasure to read the book, it's about the whole 8th Air Force, and in particular just the 100th Bomber Group. So that you're already dealing with a much larger group of men and a bigger story. So it's natural what they're saying. And they're following the book. They're following the book. Yeah.
main character is not Buck or Bucky. The main character is the group, is the
Yeah, the
100
100 bomber group.
they
Yes.
had to go through. Yeah.
So,
Of course, getting that episode with Egan in London and seeing what was happening to the people on the ground, but we got to connect more with Egan, and he becomes a more. I think he overarches Buck as a main character once Buck has been shot down. So we start to identify with him, and then we actually get to see him get shot down. Spoiler alert, if anybody has not watched the show, you probably don't want to watch this episode, but we get to see him shot down. We get to see him go through the process that Buck had gone through. We just didn't see Buck go through it, but we don't need to see it twice. And it created this incredible moment. And I hope that the person who wrote this criticism appreciated the moment when Bucky is walking into the prison camp and he's told to look at his 2:00, and there's Buck saying, what took you so long? And for me, I think that's probably the most moving moment for me, to see that them reunite, because we knew that Bucky didn't know if Buck was alive. And you wouldn't have that moment if you had seen everything that happened to Buck
wouldn't be
prior
no
to
mystery. Wouldn't be a
yeah, so
mystery.
you got to see things from the eyes of Bucky.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep track of the Bucks and the Buckies, but Egan, you got to see things from the eyes of Egan. And I think that made that very moment so much more impactful.
And one thing probably this miniseries has been missing just a little bit compared to Band of Brothers, there's not been many small victories or small happy, like you said, this, can you think of another happy moment, in this miniseries? I mean, it's been kind of tragic and in true life. This is a very tragic story of the 100th Bomb Group in the 8th Air Force. So, this is the very first, look at what Bucky's been through, been shot down, been beat almost. And, if the gun hadn't run out of ammunition, he'd been dead. They thought he was dead. He escapes, and you see him smile. I mean, the first bit of joy he's had in forever was walking in that POW camp and seeing his best friend who's alive.
Yeah.
Now, knowing they're still going to go through some hardship, and they're in a bad, as that German says, they're in a bad pickle. But it was a moment of happiness, a small victory.
I was elated in that moment. And so, and I think it's good to give us a little bit of the not constant battling, but just have that downtime and the uptime, and not have everything be so graphic. Although there was a lot that was graphic in episode 6, as far as the civilians beating up the airmen as they walked by and killing them and things like that. But I think it's safe to say that in this instance, and with this particular criticism, we're keeping an eye open for the criticisms that people have so we can address them. But I think we both agree that they got it right.
Yes,
so,
they did.
Yeah.
Very enjoyable. Thanks for having me on the show today, Melanie.